All right, so as some of you guys know, I have had some really bad SI joint pain during pregnancy. And so I wanted to share with you my little 25-minute routine every morning that I've learned in PT, and it's really helping me. So I start by using a tennis ball to do a few little muscle releases. The first one, I'm going to start on my side, and that tennis ball or lacrosse ball or any sort of ball is going to come right into your piriformis. So sort of in the middle of your glute, a little bit lower down on the hip. And then once you get there, you're going to find little clamshells with your knees, opening that top knee up, engaging the top glute as you lift. And I'm doing them a little bit quicker here, but the slower you can do it, the better. I take usually about 20, starting on the right side. And so it really helps to start to dig into the piriformis. And then a little bit of engagement in that opposite glute as well. It feels really nice. It can be pretty intense, but you want to be fully on your side for this, so the weight is really bearing down into that tennis or lacrosse ball. And so again, the first rounds of these exercises are going to be releases, and then we're going to do some stabilizing and strengthening. All right, second exercise or second relaxer, if you will, release, is going to be the tennis ball on your glute med. So now you're going to come onto your back. It's going to be a little bit higher up. You may have to move it around. And then you're going to cross that ankle, the one of that's got the tennis ball or lacrosse ball under it, over the opposite knee. And then you're just going to draw that knee in and out towards your body. So a little bit of adduction in your inner thigh. And again, working into that glute med. So now you're more towards the top back part of your glute, just sort of under your hip bones, maybe slightly down to the right. Just kind of notice where it feels good for you to find a little bit of pressure, and then finding that flexion in and out. Cool, and then you'll take 20 of those. And then the last exercise release we'll do with the tennis ball is going to be on your TFL. So that's one of your hip flexors. So you're going to take the tennis ball or lacrosse ball about 2 or 3 inches below your hip bone, and then you're just going to drop that foot to the right, since you're taking it on the right leg first, and then back up towards center. So you can see my leg is sort of moving laterally side to side here. And you may have to take the tennis ball or lacrosse ball a little lower than you actually think to start with. It's not like right up in what you think of as sort of your hip flexor. It's a little bit below that. And then you should definitely feel it. This one's really intense for me, but is a really, really, really nice release. And 20 times there. And then you're going to take all 3 of those onto the other side. So starting with that piriformis release, using that clamshell technique. I actually have a harder time finding the spot for pressure, the piriformis, on my left side for whatever reason. It's interesting, my SI joint issues started primarily on the left side, but oddly enough now they're more on the right. And that just really depends. Everyone's different. Some people only feel it on one side. Some people have it on both. SI joint issues are not exclusively for women who are pregnant. They're pretty common in women, especially women who are pregnant, but they can totally happen to anyone. And in pregnancy, the reason that they're common is because you have so much relaxin running through your body that your joints get very loose and mobile and flexible for the changing body and for delivery of baby. But that also means that there's a little bit less stability, and so if you aren't super conscious of it, it's really easy to pull or aggravate your joints or muscles. So that's pretty much what happened to me. I just didn't realize it. I wasn't being super active in stabilizing my pelvic floor and my hips, and so here I am with this nice SI joint issue. Cool. Once you've taken 20 or so on the left side with the piriformis release, you're going to take it onto your back for that glute med one. So now the left ankle is going to come over the right knee. Your feet are going to scooch over to the right just a little bit. And then with that tennis ball right under your glute med, you're going to take that left knee in and out. This shouldn't be a ton of work on your hip flexor since your hip is already in flexion here. But again, a little bit of adductor work on the left inner thigh. So the combination of releasing and then strengthening or engaging some of these body parts that are around the pelvic floor and around your hips are going to be really crucial in stabilizing your SI joint. And then you're going to take it, once you're finished with the glute med release, over to that TFL release. So ball about 2 to 3 inches below your hip bone. You're going to feel it. And then drop that heel laterally in and out. And the right leg can kind of rest wherever is comfortable. For me, it feels good to bring it up to about a 90-degree angle and let it just kind of rest on the ground. But notice here too that, see, my forearms are down. Yeah, and then I grab a block to actually hold on and stabilize. Don't let this become a big strain in your shoulders. So engage through your forearms, lifting that space between your shoulder blades, and then gaze down so it's not a strain on your neck or your shoulders. End up hurting some other body part. Awesome. So you're going to take 20 or 30 right here. And then as soon as you're done with that, we're actually done with the ball. And moving on, you are going to maybe grab a sip of coffee. You're going to grab onto a foam roller. So we're going to start by doing a few front of the leg releases. So starting just straight on, you'll pick one leg to start with, and then you're just going to bend the knee and straighten the leg, starting at the very top of your hip, top of your femur bone, top of your quads, and then you're going to just slowly work your way down. And if you find a spot that's like real tight, real tough, a lot of knots, you can hang out there. I, a few years ago, started having some issues with my right IT band. I had started picking up a lot of spin, and I was doing a ton of yoga where we often step forward and backward, and that had just really worked into my IT band. And once I started rolling my quads out, it really helped. But I was really only doing it on the right side because that's where my IT band issue was. And so now I'm really conscious about doing everything evenly on both sides, because actually it's my left quad that is way more intense to roll out in this way. So you're just going to keep taking that as you roll all the way down towards the knee, and then finding those sweet spots where you get a bit more intensity, again holding there, maybe taking a few extra bends of the knee. And then once you're pretty much through with the very front of your quad, you're going to roll over, not quite to your IT band, but slightly more on an angle. And then you're going to do totally the same thing here. So starting really high up, you might use that opposite foot to pull up and brace you a little bit, or it can just kind of hang out there. And then again, you're just going to bend and straighten, slowly moving down the leg. And then again, when you find a spot that's really intense, you're going to hold it there. Everyone's a little different. You may feel that way up at the top. Again, sort of by that TFL, you may find it in the middle. That's actually kind of my sweet spot, is right in the middle of the, between my hip bone and my knee. Or you may feel it a lot lower down, right above the kneecap. So play around with that a little bit. I actually notice even on my left side, it's so intense that sometimes I can't do the full bending and straightening, and I just kind of have to roll into it. But starting with the right here, working your way all the way down the knee. There's no set amount of time you need to be here. This is kind of up to you. I'm usually here for a few minutes, just making sure that I really get in there. And then you're going to move it over to the other side when you're done. Good. And then once you are complete with both sides, you're going to take it to a little inner thigh roll out here. So basically you're going to take it just to the inside of your knee, maybe an inch or two in, and then you're going to roll your weight onto the foam roller as much as you can and start again lifting laterally side to side from your heel. At first you might not feel anything, and then as you start to press more weight into the inner thigh, you're going to feel that. This was a really new one for me. All these other things I have done in some way, shape, or form before going to PT, but this one was new and it actually feels really good. Especially I do a lot of spin. I teach some spin classes and I have a Peloton at home, so this one really, really, really helps in that regard. And then now I'm just taking it over to the left side, starting with those front quad stretches, or not stretches, releases. I'm starting to bend and straighten the left knee, starting at the very top. And then again, it's just going to be a process of slowly working down the leg towards the kneecap. Pausing as you get somewhere that feels like a deeper sensation or might feel a little painful. In a good way, it should be sweet pain. Maybe it's a little bit of ouch, but mostly sweet pain. And then sometimes crossing the leg on top of the other can be a nice way to add a little bit of extra weight. You kind of have to play around with what you do with that other leg. There's a lot of options. It can stay on the foam roller. It can come out to the side. Maybe you pull the foam roller so far over to the left that the right leg just kind of hangs on the ground. Maybe the legs cross. And then you're going to take it to that more diagonal angle. So again, not quite onto your IT band, but between the very front of your quad and your IT band. So just a little bit of an angle, and then bending and straightening again. Now this is very similar to when I went into PT before they actually showed me all of these releases and exercises to do. This is essentially what they're doing when you lay there and they dig their elbow or some other instrument into a body part like your quad, and then they often have you take these same movements of bending and straightening the knee or taking the knee side to side laterally, and then that's how they're really working into the muscle. So basically this is just a way to do this on your own. If you've already visited a physical therapist, or if you haven't but you know that this is your issue, or you're just looking for some really nice hip and quad releases, then this is really going to be your best bet. So foam roller and tennis or lacrosse ball are pretty inexpensive and pretty useful tools to have in your home. All right, and then last but not least of the releases, we've got that second side working into those adductor muscles, especially right to the inside of the knee. You can see I'm just a few inches in, and then I'm starting to lift that heel up and down. And as you'll see in the second half of this video, as we work our way into the strengthening exercises, that it's all about stabilizing. So once you take these releases and allow your muscles to not necessarily relax a little bit, but to just release, then you're going to start to activate them. And that's going to help let your muscles and joints know who should be activating, who should be firing, who should be moving, and who's controlling the shell. Awesome. When you're done with that, make your way up. You can set the foam roller and tennis ball aside for now. And then we're going to start actually on your side. So we've got 3 different exercises here with the legs up at about a 90-degree angle. You're going to roll over onto your right side, knees at hip height, and then feet straight down. Extend that right leg out, and then flex the toes and lift up. Or sorry, left leg out. The left leg's on top here if you're on your right side. And you're just starting to engage that left glute, lifting up through the outer heel. In total, you're going to probably want to take about 20 of each of these, but if you want to do 10 on the right, 10 on the left, 10 on the right, 10 on the left, these can be really, I don't want to say exhausting, but They really burn your muscles out. So taking 10 at a time might be a better option. And then once you've taken 10 of those, legs straight out, same thing. Now you're going to point your toes and lift up. So now you're starting to strengthen those glute medius, really all through your glute here, all down the outer chain of your leg. And lifting up, up, up. So this is just straight leg with the toe pointed. And then the final exercise that we're going to take, strengthening of these 90-90s on the first side, maybe take a little release there, is going to be to extend the leg out with the toes pointed. And then you're just going to dip your toes down to the ground. Sometimes you have to really shake it out because it's intense. Down to the ground like you're tapping them in water, and then all the way back up. So you want to externally and internally rotate from the top of your femur bone. You're not just twisting your ankle here. It's the whole leg turning in and out. So maybe even hand to the hip to make sure that that entire leg is rotating, dipping the toe, lifting it up. Good, so about 10 on that side. I would suggest doing 10 and 10 because, again, the intensity of this doesn't look like a whole lot, but it sure is. And then you can flip it over. I'm going to face you guys just so that you can see. And you're going to take that onto the other side, your left side. And now your right leg is going to be doing more of the work. So bring the knees up to a 90-degree angle. And then the right leg is going to extend out, foot flexed, starting here, opening up. Similar to those clamshells, but the intensity is just a lot more here. And then obviously you don't have the ball underneath you to be getting the release. This is really all about strengthening. And then notice here the engagement of your pelvic floor. We're going to be doing a specific exercise to activate that, but you want to start paying attention to that in everything that you're doing, especially when stabilizing your hips and especially in pregnancy. So for women, think Kegel. For men, basically the idea is just sort of drawing up and in from the very root of your core. So find that sensation here. And then now you're going to be pointing the toes and floating that foot up and down, nice and controlled, keeping your hips stacked. So you don't want them rolling too far forward or too far back. That's why I have the hand out in front of me to stabilize. And then again, shake it out if you need to. And you're going to take that final exercise of these 90 degrees, dipping the toe down and back up, revolving in and out at the top of the femur bone. Really important. You don't just want to be tweaking those toes or the knees. The whole point is that you are working the hips, not your ankle. So you're rotating from the top down. Beautiful. It's going to be pretty intense. You're going to want to release that. So you can do 2 rounds of 10 on each side. That's really going to be your best bet in working it all in, unless these are not that hard for you. And then you can take all 20, or maybe you start to add a little bit of an ankle weight. All right, so next we're going to do the pelvic floor engagement. You don't have to have a block here. I use my yoga block. You can use a little ball. You can even just use a pillow. You're going to take it between your knees. You're going to squeeze your knees together lightly. Pull up and in at your pelvic floor and lift your hips for 3, 2, 1. Lower down, release. Don't drop the block. Just release that pressure. And then again, you're going to take 10 to 20 of these. So each time you just squeeze the block, engage your pelvic floor, think Kegel, and lift your hips for 3, 2, 1, and down. Good. Count those out on your own. And engaging the pelvic floor and those transverse abdominis, really deep core muscles, is going to be so important on stabilizing your hips for SI joint issues and for all kinds of things in pregnancy. Your body is expanding in that region and you're gaining a lot of weight in the front of your body. So making sure that your core and your back body is strong to hold everything up is going to be really, really important. So even unrelated to this particular video and SI joint issues, For a lot of women, you get bigger in the top of your body as well. Your bust is growing, and so focusing on lat strength is important to balance that out. Good, so 10 to 20 of these. Again, just engaging the pelvic floor, squeezing that block or pillow or ball, and lifting up. And then you can remove that, let it go. All right, next round of exercises, we're actually going to get up on our feet. And so we've got a couple here. You are going to start by taking, you don't actually have to have a mat for this, by the way. So you're going to start by taking some squats. If you have a band, you can wrap it around something and pull it back. Otherwise, here I'm just engaging actively, sort of pretending like I've got a band there, and then you're going to sink your hips back. So this idea with the band started in PT. This is how they taught it to me. But again, I don't have a band and I don't have anything to wrap it around. So I'm just engaging my lats here. The idea is just that you want to keep that upper body and chest lifted. And then you're just sinking your hips back all the way up, engaging your glutes at the top and pulling up and in with your pelvic floor. All of that weight is in your heels. 10 to 20 of those. You could take a couple rounds again if you want to break it down, and then we're going to take some curtsy lunges. If you can stand on a block for this or some sort of raised platform, that's great, but if not, no big deal. Again, in PT, I stood on something, but he said it was fine to do just on the ground. So you're just going to really lightly step one foot out to the side and then behind you. That foot that is stepping has very little weight in it. You can see I'm just lightly tapping my toe. And it's that standing leg that's going to have always a little tiny bend in it, even when you come to standing. And then obviously a deep bend as you take the curtsy lunge. But you want, again, most of that weight to be in the standing leg heel. Chest stays lifted. You don't want to arch the low back too much here. And then again, you're going to take about 10 on each side, and you can take 2 rounds of these. And they're working the outer glutes, but also as you step that foot behind you to the side, you're kind of working those adductor muscles as well. And then again, we'll take those squats here, all the way down, all the way up, engaging your lats with that real or fake band. And again, weights in the heels, dropping your hips back and squeezing the glutes and pelvic floor all the way at the top. Now, I have a slight tilt forward in my hips, as you can tell, but I'm also pregnant, so that makes the curves a little bit more. But you just want to try to neutralize that as much as possible, not forcing an anterior or posterior tilt, unless you've been advised so by your physical therapist or doctor. But I would say just engage your pelvic floor and try for a really neutral hip alignment. Good, and then back to those curtsy lunges. So again, you're going to want to do 2 rounds of 10 of each of these exercises. If you have time to do more, wonderful. But this is sort of a good 20 to 25 minute routine. I take this every morning. I know it's a bit of time, but it really, really, really helps so that I can still exercise safely. And that was my biggest thing when the SI joint issue happened. A lot of people said, oh, well, stop working out, give yourself rest. And while rest and ice is important, I also really wanted to be able to still exercise. I just wanted to do it safely. So final exercise here is harder for me to show you on my rug, but if you have wood floors or some sort of tile floors, you're going to put a pair of socks on, and you're just going to slowly open one leg out and then pull it all the way back in using those adductor muscles. They had me do this on a reformer, but here I just do it at home in my bathroom on the smooth tiles. So awesome, you're going to take 10 to 20 on each side. And then this should really be a nice help for you to release and stabilize those hip joints so that you can protect your SI. Have a great day, guys. Hope that helped you out.